Hey guys, my name is Bando, this is Brooks of Bando, and you might be able to see on screen me going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. That's because this video was originally over 3 hours long, and as much as I would love to have you guys sit there for 3 hours and get bombarded by YouTube adverts and make me all the money, I'm not going to put you through that. So, forewarning, it's still nearly a 40-minute video, and it's running at like 4 times speed. So I'm building a Legion sicaran. And talking about some other models I'm working on. This is for Kenny's community painting competition, and the theme for this is dirt, blood, mud, all sorts of grim darkness. So I'm building a tank here, and I'm doing some stuff to make it a little bit sort of more grimy, more damaged. So what I'm going to do here at the beginning is I'm actually using a sculpting tool, and I'm heating it up with a lighter. And what I do then is, completely out of focus and out of frame, is basically just run it along the plastic. I even start using a candle because the lighter's running out of fluid. You can see here it just creates this very ripped, like buckled metal texture. And I've done a couple of them over here and a couple of bullet holes and some chips and some notches knocked out of it. Now unfortunately I didn't record the beginning part where I actually built the sicaran, which is rather annoying, but you know, I'm an idiot, so sue me. I primed it using Vallejo's Mecha Black, and then did a zenithal using MIG's white primer. Two of the paints that I really like, and I've kept the sponson weapons separate so I can paint around them. The turret's obviously separate, and the guy in the top can be pulled out as well. And here you go. I have gone and done a World Eaters sicaran. I want to do a World Eaters force. I want to do a force for every legion. And the World Eaters basically are going to be a mechanised division. So this has then got a coat of Pro-Acryl white. I wasn't actually very happy with the Pro-Acryl white here. It didn't cover as well as I'd like. That's not a slight against the Pro-Acryl bold titanium, I think they call it, which is a fantastic paint. It was more to do with me. I didn't give it enough layers. I was looking in one spot thinking, yeah, that's done, and not really checking the whole model. And I'm also going through here with Cantor Blue, which is one of my favourite blues. It's a nice dark blue. And just adding some panelling in here. I'm not being very careful, and that will come back to bite me in the arse later. But, you know, hey, we live and learn. And I'm using these brushes that I got from a place called Brushes for Models. Unfortunately, Brushes for Models, who make these lovely yellow handled brushes, don't have a website. They only go to UK trade shows for mostly modelling, like scale modelling, but also mostly model railways. So if you see them, they're lovely people. And I picked up a couple of these bigger brushes for, you know, just for this sort of project. And they're very, very handy. Now, while R2-D2 here gets his blue on, I wanted to talk about my plans for this. So my plans for the World Eaters are a mechanised division, because if you've been following the channel, you will know I like to do my armies in 2 ways. I like to pair them up when I'm doing armies, and I like to do things that are not right. For example, Raven Guard heavy weapons, that sort of thing. What I'm doing here is just a light blue glaze around all of the rivets and some of the shadowy areas, and that's just to give it a little bit of bluey kind of shadow. I will completely destroy this later with an oil wash, but this is just what I was doing with my World Eaters on the other test minis I've done. So I thought I should continue it. I may skip this step in the future. I'm not particularly happy with the results I got. But if I wasn't going to use an oil wash, it's 100% something I would do. And what you're seeing there is I'm putting the glaze down and then using a clean brush of water just to blend it into the area around it. So, back on topic. I want to do a World Eaters tank division, basically. Facing off against my Shattered Legions, so fighting in the ruins of a great big city, like an industrial revolution, 1930s sort of level of technology dead city. That's where that battle is taking place, and these guys are chasing down survivors of the drop site massacre. And basically, the fleet elements are being kept up in orbit, and are getting given the runaround by what's left of the Raven Guard fleet, part of this fleet, while everyone else on the planet is still fighting. So they've managed to deploy heavy weapons, but they're fighting a guerrilla war against the other forces. So my plan for this was a sicaran command tank and basically like 6 predators, some Tartarus Terminators, a Spartan or either a Spartan or a Land Raider. I'm not entirely sure. It depends on the size of the Tartarus squad, I think. And I might get a Kratos as well. The Kratos has never been one of those tanks that I liked. Ever since I saw it originally, I was like, it doesn't really do anything that the other tanks don't. Now you can see there's some overspray. Basically, I did some blue freehanding of the chain motif that's on my other World Eater models, my test models, and it looked awful. So, fully admitting my mistake, I went back and I gave it another couple of coats of white. Yes, that means I'm now going to have to redo all the blue, but hey, that is, it is what it is. So, I've gone back, redone the blue, and I've done all the black here as well. This is again just TT Combat black, nice glossy or semi-glossy black, and then I've mixed in my decals. I don't have any World Eaters decals, so I've just used random decals that I like the look of, but I've left some nice big spots for some World Eater specific decals if I get them in the future, which, you guys know me, I have spending problems. I will eventually go and get them. I'm now using a dark brown. My go-to usually is a GW dark brown, which is, I can't remember what it's called. Rakarth Flesh? No. Rhinox Hide. Rhinox Hide is my go-to for stippling. In this case, it was actually like dark leather or something by TT Combat, because I couldn't find it. Obviously, because my desk is a complete and utter mess. Now, chipping over something like this is one of the things I love doing. I absolutely love chipping tanks. I think it looks fantastic. And all I'm doing is using a piece of sponge, torn up sponge, a little bit of brown paint, and then some... I can't even think what they're called. I've just got back from camping. I'm absolutely exhausted. I keep thinking nippers. They're not nippers. Cut things with them. They're... I'm looking at them. I've got them in my hand right here. The metal things, I give up. You guys know what they're called. But yeah, these are reverse ones. So you push down to let go of whatever's in your hand. So yeah, that means, I can just hold them quite easily. So all I'm doing is going all around the entirety of the model. All around the edges, anywhere where there would be wear and tear, and I'm going a little bit heavier in places like where there's chipping, and anywhere that I think that the paint's going to wear off. Places where there's going to be mud, places where it's going to get hot, places where guys are going to walk, places where bits are going to move and touch against each other. Maybe where it's going to ride through vegetation, back up over things, that sort of thing. The easiest way to actually figure it out would be to paint the model, prime your model, and then just handle it for a while and see where all the paint rubs off. Like if you really wanted to know where these hot spots are going to be. And there's a lot of it, so I keep going, and if there's anywhere I want to go a bit more in detail, I will go back with a brush. 2 seconds. Sorry guys, someone at the door. So if there's anywhere I want to add more details, scratches, or particularly just want to add more chips in a particular fashion, I will just use a brush. Nice fine brush, dotting sort of pattern, and it doesn't take long at all. And actually I think that looks better for marine size models. So just checking it out, seeing if there's any major spots that I've missed. And then I gave it a coat of gloss varnish, and now I'm going through with a very runny mixture of burnt umber oil paint and white spirit. It's just normal artist grade, like you'd get from an art shop or WH Smith's or anywhere like that. Oil paint. Do make sure it's an oil paint, not an acrylic or anything else, or don't want to use water oil paints either. Now, I made a mistake here, and that is that I went too thin. Normally I go quite thick with my oils, and then they can be removed really easily. You can see there they're still a bit damp. This has been about an hour's worth of drying as well. Now normally that would come off and still be showing quite bright white underneath, and it's just not shifting. So I actually had to do this for quite some time to get this back to where it was supposed to be. In fact, this was getting so difficult to do. I was wearing the paint off. It was going through the varnish, wearing the paint off, which it shouldn't do. I'm not sure why this happened. This isn't normal behaviour for the oils. There's no difference. It's the exact same bottle of white spirit. It's the exact same bottle of paint. The only difference is I went in thinner with it as a wash rather than slopping it on looking like it's covered in cow shit. So, I was experimenting and I made a mistake. I almost got to a point where I stripped this model and started from scratch. But I didn't. I persevered and went, hang on, I've got plenty of space here. I'm not hiding detail. Worst comes to worst, I can go back and I can glaze over some white to bring it back up. And that's actually what I did in the end. I did use a brush as well, and not just the Q-tips or cotton buds. You know what? Spending so much time online, I'm really picking up on a lot of Americanisms. My parents despise the way I talk to them because I have accidentally said aluminum instead of aluminium to them, just because I wasn't thinking. And it, not good. I speak the King's English. Badly. Very badly. Wow, you're getting some HD footage of my hands in this video. It's a little difficult to film when you've got a camera that I'm using my phone and it's right in front of me, and it's just a little difficult to figure out where everything is. Massive respect to those guys who do painting videos and make it look good. It really isn't as easy as you'd think it would be. Now, you'll see there's some blue leaking through in places. I obviously wasn't as tidy with the blue around the edges of the panels as I should have been. If I could do this again, that's definitely something I'd do better, is I'd go back and I would tidy those edges up before I did the oils. My initial plan was actually to cover them up in brown chipping, but I obviously forgot because jelly brain. I'm not bothering with the underside particularly because no one's going to see it. And this does go on for a while. This was almost an hour solid of me doing this, if I remember correctly, if not closer to 2 hours. But it came out nicely. It's almost Death Guardy, but I'm very happy it matches the existing test model. It is white. It's an off-white. But it's not blinding white, so it's a bit more realistic for a white that's going to have seen combat, that's going to see dirt, grime, rolling through a city. There you go. I've switched to a more natural light, and you can see that it is a bit whiter than it looked originally. Now, after this, I did go back and I did add some more white. I basically just glazed on white into some of the larger areas, and I did some white in the chipping as well to sort of underline some of the larger chips to give them that bit of a 3D effect. Then I've gone back and I'm doing my metallics. Now I'm using several metallics. I'm using TT Combat, I'm using Vallejo's metal colour range, and I've used some of the AK Gen 3s on this. And I wanted to start with a nice dark metallic, so I mixed in some black with the TT Combat's is it chainmail? Yeah, gunmetal, which is a nice dark silver. But I wanted it darker so I could work back up to it and then add a little bit of lighter silver in. I always think it's a bit better to do that way because you just build your shadows up a bit better. Trying to be a bit careful as well. Onto the tracks, onto the exhausts, onto the gun barrels for the heavy bolter on the on the turret, on the body. The hunter-killer missile, the gun casings, or the mechanism of the guns. I didn't do any of the chipping with this metallic. I waited for the next one. By the way, I hate how they have done the mechanism for the guns on this, where they can rotate independently almost, because of how bad the crossbar in the middle is. It needs to be slightly longer, in my opinion. Or it just needs to be a, click in place and that's it, it's done. Don't have any movement in the guns. Right, yeah, so just picking out all of the parts. Just picking out the back of the lamp now. There's a lot of metallics on here. This did take a fair amount of time, unfortunately. And you can see here, I broke the gun. It was feeling very loose. So I left them off so I could paint them, because actually it let me get access to the inside of the gun, so I could get access to things like the shell casings, and I could tidy up a few other spots. The crew is actually removable, but I just painted it on there anyway. Onto the tracks. Now the tracks are going to get dirty anyway, so I'm not really going crazy on the tracks. They're going to get coated in mud, because that's one of the key parts of this challenge was mud. Mud was really important. It's all grimy, it's all grimdark. And for the mud, I went a bit crazy with Vallejo's Russian mud, which is one of their weathering effect paints. And if you are looking at doing muddy stuff, it's brilliant. It's like GW's texture paints. You just slop it on straight from the pot, and it has, I think they have about a dozen different shades of mud, and this is a very dark, wet mud. Got to clean your brushes in my absolutely grim brush soap. It's always important to keep look after your tools, he says, looking at the battlefield that is his desk. So exhaust manifold, that's another one of the paints I really like. They are a bit weird to use in a brush. They're not as they don't last as long on the palette. And by palette I of course mean Lucozade bottle lid. And I just use that to pick out some of the higher points on the tracks, just the edges really. And then the back of obviously the exhaust manifold. Makeup brushes, that was £1 from Primark. Makeup brushes are fantastic because you get 2 different sizes on them usually, and they're incredibly cheap. Nice soft bristles, usually something like badger fur if they are real. And they're just really good for dry brushing. I mean, you guys spend absolute fortune on those Artist Opus dry brushes. You can get perfectly good dry brushes from your average drugstore. Just look for the makeup section. You can see there how quickly it's dried on the palette as well. So the barrels, I wanted to make sure they were a bit brighter than everything else, so I focused a lot on the barrels but not on the areas around them. Just doing the the highlights for those. Christ, even at 4 times this is taking forever. We're over halfway, so that's okay. So metallics, we're going to do some lighter metallics eventually, and I need to do the back again, cover some of that up. I want to tidy up the blues here, and I want to get some more white in. So, I think this is when I did the golds. I'm just repeating what I said earlier about being able to access the shells. I'm very surprised they haven't released the rest of the turrets for this yet. So, AK Gen 3, I'm testing these paints at the moment. One thing I will say about these is, unlike a lot of paints, they flow out of the bottle very quickly. So it's very easy to put too much on your palette. What I'm doing here is silver by Gen 3, AK11209 is a very bright silver. So what I'm doing here is just picking out any battle damage. Any of the major chips where it's got all the way down to the metal, I'm just doing that around the edges, you know, all the deep scratches. And what this does, it gives a bit more contrast to the scratches and the chipping, and gives them more of a 3D effect and just makes it stand out a bit more. It's also a really good way of showing chipping on darker colours like the blue. The brown doesn't show up very well, but the silver obviously does. And then I'm picking out the melted metal for the impact scars. I guess that's what you could call them. Now I fill them in because I'm going to go back and I use a wash to fill them in again. I really should write down what I'm going to say in these things. It just ends up with me just blabbering and repeating myself and lots of quiet. But I guess, you know, that's just me. You are accustomed to a certain level of production quality here, and we strive to maintain it. The quality level is 0, and we're still going to provide 0 quality. Talking about 0 quality, did anyone else see Bits Hammer on Twitter, the absolute fountain of progressivism that they are, asking why right-wing, like, chuds, why the chud channels are so unpopular? And, you know, saying, oh, if the silent majority of hobbyists support sort of our side of the argument, why are you so unpopular on the internet? At which point everyone started pointing out that Bits only has about 350 followers, and they went on another banning spree. Which is probably why they've only got 300 odd followers. It's been nice to turn off and go camping and get away from all Twitter drama and stuff like that, even if it was only for a single night. But boy oh boy does my back hurt from sleeping on the Sussex floor. But I did some nice walking, got some nice view and, you know, some nice pictures. Saw some cows. Cows are great. So just dry brushing on the AK Silver now, just into the main barrel and onto the upper edges of the rest of the gun. I'm trying to go for that two-tone brushed metal look. What's next? Where are we going? Nobody knows. So yeah, I'm just going to go through and do more chipping. It's very hard to kind of get a random pattern going by hand. Humans are inherently unable to actually do things at random because we like patterns too much. But I'm quite happy with how this turned out. So, yep, just doing more of the scarring. I'm not going to highlight the tracks at this point because the tracks are obviously going to get mud on them again. But I did go back and then add some highlights to the tracks after the mud, anywhere that you could still see through it. And again, you really don't want much for this, because you don't want to imply that a lot of these scratches are really heavy. It sells the effect more if there's less of it. And a couple of just diagonal scratches for, where people have scratched panels. Maybe they've driven past a tree or something. If you like weathering on tanks, I've recommended it before, but Night Shift Modelling, who did a video on a sicaran recently, was absolutely fantastic. And this is actually only the second sicaran I've built. The first one was for my Raven Guard, and it's the Venator variant, the Tank Hunter variant, which will be facing off against this. In fact, that may be the photo I'll put at the end of this video. I don't know. And it's definitely one of my goals for maybe next year, is to actually get some really cool 1930s American city style terrain, because that's the kind of setting for this army. is a planet which had got to that level of technology, had been contacted by the Imperium, and basically went, yeah, we're not giving up our gods, we're not giving up our society. And then the Blood Angels invaded to, convince them of their mistake, and they made the mistake of getting into an atomic pissing contest with the Ninth Legion, which has led to their entire planet dying. So now, 70 years later, the survivors are hiding in the ruins of this dead world. There's something about the aesthetic of it, like a city reclaimed by nature, that I just really vibe with. The end of, I think, Logan's Run, bits of Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes, that just, overgrown cities, those moments of time, the plates are still on the table, but there's a tree coming through the wall, sort of thing. I just think it's fantastic. It's just such a cool setting. A lot of The Last of Us is very much like that as well. Still haven't watched that. I only played the first game as well. So you see, there is a lot of chipping going on here. Even at 4 times speed, I can't believe how long this is taking. I don't know if I should just shut up, stop recording the audio, and just leave it to play. I think I will. No, I'm not going to. That would be unfair. Again, just trying to really define each panel, because I don't do a lot of the heavy metal style painting. I don't, do the shade and the highlight and stuff. A lot of the weathering is my highlighting, as it's defining the edges of the panels and the areas, because that's all your highlighting is doing, is basically bringing your attention to the edges of panels so you can see what it is at a distance. You're tricking the eye. I do want to get some World Eaters decals for this, though. Yeah, you can see the blue pre-shade that I did, and I didn't quite like it. More washing of the brushes. Oh yeah, that was it. I was hiding a tide mark. And then, this is it. I'm going back and I'm covering up all the mistakes where the blue is outside of its panels. And, mistakes, they happen. Just, work with them. I'm filling in a couple of holes where I wore through the paint there. And you can see, just adding chips in with a brush is completely possible if you don't have any sponge, but it will take you a lot longer. And as we've already established, this takes a while as it is. I like to think that those panels are all removable to access like gubbins and moving parts and, you know, pistons and other bits that they can get to. That's what, like, you look at all the marine armour and all its, you know, bits and pieces and all the different panels. It's quite easy to make up a story about why they're there, not just to break up a panel. But yeah, it's it's all headcanon, isn't it? It's all fun. So I'm just going to use AK Gen 3 Brass here, which is my go-to gold at the moment. Really has replaced Retributor Gold as my first stop for painting gold. It's a little greener than Retributor Gold, but it covers beautifully. You know, it comes up nicely if you mix it with a little bit of silver. Shade it down with some Reichland gloss or something. There was a bit of a hair in there, unfortunately. Now there isn't much gold on here. A little bit of trim on the crew member, the viewport, and the cannon shells. Really, it's about all the gold that's actually on this model. And actually, you can kind of get away with only one coat here. I think I did two coats in the end, but it covers so incredibly well, especially over a light coat like this. It's not really needed. So the crew member is made from the plastic Mark II vehicle command set, but he's also used the torso from the old Death Guard Forge World kit that's suitably techy, and then I took a Mark III plastic helmet, snipped off the spike, but I also cut down the visor or the faceplate to give him more of a mono visor look, to be more like the Mark II. Mono visors just look cool. And I just, rather than putting shoulder pads on him, I left them off because, you know, being a vehicle crewman, he's going to want to be a bit thinner, a bit smaller, easier to move around. But I kept the Legion colours by painting the detailing in blue, as he would have had with his regular shoulder pads. Just trying to add a bit more of a third colour in there with some gold on some random bits. Touching up things like the optics and whatever that sensor module was. And the optics in the end got painted with Doomfire Magenta, and then highlighted up with just a little spot of white mixed in with the Doomfire Magenta. I really like mixing contrast paints with regular paints. It does give you some really interesting kind of performance. Doesn't maintain the sort of transparency or anything, but it can give you a really nice, vibrant sort of pop. Trying to figure out where else I can do, but really it's only this one module here that can be gold other than the viewport. And again, I don't want to go too much into the brass or gold for these guys. I feel like the brass side of the World Eaters is later heresy, and the scouring. And you can see I've just done a coat on the optics, and I've painted all of the sort of recoil compression bits on the weapons, and that was done with TT Combat's Talakan Red, and then highlighted up with Capo Red. And again, I wanted to get some red in there, and it's just a bit mixed, you know, a bit of a break of colour. And here we are onto the lovely mud, and it's a great product. Literally just grab a brush and start slopping it on. And this actually isn't just like texture paint, this has got, you know, little bits of twigs in it and stuff, so it looks like you are driving through detritus mud, you know, actual decomposing plant matter. And I properly like wedged it into the tracks, you know, I'm not being nice. Now, one thing I will tell you about this sort of product is do make sure you wash your brush out thoroughly once you're finished. You do not want that getting stuck in the bristles. It will ruin brushes. I've used one of the larger brushes because that was why I got them, was for doing things like this. But yeah, do make sure you wash your brushes out thoroughly. Lots of water, some soap if you've got it. Even if you use just like dish soap, you know, it's a good good idea to make sure you keep them clean. Now, I also don't want to go too heavy with this, and you got to think, where does the mud go? Which way do the tracks move? Where is it going to build up? Why is it building up there? Don't just slop it on the sides an inch up because you think that's where it should go. I've gone only a little bit up sides, in areas where it's going to be kicking up mud. And then I dried this off with a hairdryer. I think we're on about 2 days worth of painting time at this point, on and off. And obviously no mud on the turret. And yes, I got mud all over my fingers. So there you have it, guys. One finished Legion Sicaran of the World Eaters Legion. I think, or I hope at least, that this has been entertaining. I hope that the model itself is grimdark enough for you, Kenny. Pardon me. It's gritty and grimy. I could have maybe gone a bit muddier, but I'm quite happy with where it's gone, and I hope this is the beginning of yet another beautiful army. And by army, I mean obsession and financial irresponsibility. And please, I need help. Somebody, please help me. And let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to get any more, information on anything I did during this project. If you have any questions, just pop them down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I had a lot of fun doing this. It was quite fun to try and do it at speed, as it were. Throwing in a couple of interesting different techniques. A couple of glazes I hadn't tried before. And not working off of too many reference images either, which is normally something I would do when working off a tank. This one I kind of went completely blind. But it's not a bad kit. I'll tell you this, the track covers at the top, I have managed to stick on backwards on both sicarans I've built. So I'll try to remember that next time and not do it again. Hopefully I'll be able to pick up a couple of predators at some point. I think I'll need 6 predators in total, probably all autocannon predators, just autocannon heavy bolter sort of jobbies, and a Kratos or something. I've got a Spartan going spare that I wasn't sure which army to put it into, and I might put that in this army. And I've got another I've got another Land Raider, which I'm not entirely sure where that's going yet. That could either go to my Emperor's Children, or it might go to these guys. We'll see. If the Spartan goes here, I'll probably put the Land Raider into the Emperor's Children. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm sorry it's a very long video. If you stuck through to the end, thank you very much. Let me know. Just pop in the comments that you've made it to the end. I always like it when you guys do that. And remember, if you're picking up the new version of Age of Sigmar, you can get it from Element Games for, I believe, 20% off still. And if you use code JAM737, you'll double your reward points, and you'll be able to support the channel by giving me some reward points there that I can use to pick up more kits to make videos like this in the future. If you didn't like the video, please say why. Let me know. Give me some feedback. At worst, we'll just start antagonising each other. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. If you want to support the channel, like, comment, subscribe, hit the share button. And as always, thank you for being here. I love you guys. Bye bye.